Welcome back, Rare Coin Insider. In the world of coin collecting, few stories capture as much attention as the tale of the 1965 1-cent coin, a simple copper piece that in the minds of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters has transformed into a legendary artifact. At first glance, the 1965 1-cent coin, also known as a penny, seems like nothing extraordinary. Millions were minted, passed from hand to hand in grocery stores, used to buy candies, slipped into piggy banks, and forgotten in drawers. Yet when you begin to peel back the layers of history, the design details, the controversies of the minting year, and the incredible rarity of certain versions, you quickly realize why this humble coin has earned such enormous fascination. There are tales of a single specimen being worth as much as $183 million, a number so outrageous it forces people to ask, how can something so small, so ordinary, carry a value greater than palaces, private islands, and fleets of luxury cars? The answer lies not only in the physical coin itself but in the mystery, the scarcity, the condition, and the human desire to own something unique that connects us to history. The year 1965 was not just any year in American coinage. It was a turning point. The United States Mint was facing unprecedented challenges, from rising silver prices to a massive demand for circulating coins. During the early 1960s, the nation went through a coin shortage crisis. Businesses complained that there weren't enough coins in circulation, banks struggled to supply change, and the general public even accused collectors of hoarding coins, especially the silver quarters and dimes. To address the crisis, the U.S. Mint made some bold and controversial decisions. One of those decisions was to eliminate mint marks for a period of time, beginning in 1965. That meant coins struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco would not carry their usual identifying marks. This was done to discourage hoarding and speculation. For collectors, however, this created confusion and frustration, since mint marks had always been a vital way to distinguish coins and track their origins. The 1-cent coin of 1965 fell directly into this transitional period. The 1965 1-cent coin, in terms of physical specifications, followed the same basic design that had been introduced in 1959. On the obverse, or the front, you see the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This design had already been in use since 1909, marking the centennial of Lincoln's birth, and it became one of the most enduring and beloved coin designs in American history. By 1965, Lincoln's profile had already been in circulation for more than half a century, making it instantly recognizable to every American. Above Lincoln's head are the words, "In God We Trust," while to the left appears the word, "Liberty," and to the right is the date, 1965. What is missing, however, is the mint mark, because of the aforementioned decision by the U.S. Mint. This lack of mint mark is what makes the 1965 cent stand out from many other years. On the reverse side, the coin features the Lincoln Memorial, an image introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier wheat ears design. The Lincoln Memorial design, created by Frank Gasparo, showcases the Grand Monument in Washington, D.C., and if you look closely, you can even see a tiny representation of the statue of Lincoln seated inside. Above the memorial are the words, "United States of America." Below it is the denomination, 1 cent, and at the top edge, you'll find the motto, "E pluribus unum." In terms of composition, the 1965 cent was struck from the same material as previous years, a bronze alloy made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Each coin weighs approximately 3.11 grams and measures 19 millimeters in diameter. To most people, these technical details are just numbers, but for collectors, they are the foundation of identifying authenticity, errors, and anomalies. For example, if a coin does not match these specifications exactly, it may be a counterfeit, a test strike, or some kind of mint error that could dramatically affect its value. But why would a coin like this, which seems so ordinary and was produced in such enormous numbers, ever be considered valuable at all? The answer lies in rarity, condition, and historical context. While it is true that more than 1 billion Lincoln cents were struck in 1965, only a handful of examples in pristine condition, with certain unique qualities, have captured the imagination of collectors and investors. Coins are graded by professional services on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect coin that has never seen circulation and shows no blemishes under magnification. Most 1965 cents found today are worn, scratched, or dull, since they circulated widely. However, those that were carefully preserved, sometimes directly from mint sets, can achieve extremely high grades. A coin graded at MS67 or MS68, for instance, becomes an instant rarity because so few survive in such immaculate condition. This is where the extraordinary values come into play. Imagine an ordinary penny, something that most people would not even bother to pick up from the sidewalk, suddenly being appraised at hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars. That is the magic of numismatics, the science and art of studying coins. For the 1965 cent, certain error coins are especially prized. Examples include double die errors, where the design elements appear double due to misalignment during the minting process, or off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned with the blank coin. There are even rumors of experimental pieces, coins that were struck on the wrong planchets, such as being accidentally struck on a dime or foreign coin blank. These extremely rare anomalies, sometimes existing in only 1 or 2 examples, are what fetch astronomical prices at auction. One of the most famous stories tied to the 1965 penny is that of a unique specimen rumored to have been sold privately for over $183 million. While skeptics debate the legitimacy of this claim, it highlights just how feverish the market can become when it comes to owning a Holy Grail coin. The psychology of collectors plays a huge role here. People are not just buying a piece of copper, they are buying history, prestige, and the right to say they own something nobody else in the world possesses. For wealthy investors, spending millions on a rare coin is not unlike buying a Van Gogh painting or a diamond of exceptional size and quality. It is about rarity, beauty, and the story behind the object. The 1965 penny, therefore, represents far more than its face value. It is a symbol of American culture, monetary history, and the mysteries that surround the minting process. When we talk about the market value of a coin like this, it is important to understand how auctions and private sales work. A rare coin's value is not set in stone. It fluctuates depending on demand, collector interest, and the availability of buyers with deep pockets. A penny might be worth a few dollars in one setting and skyrocket to millions in another if the right bidders are competing for it. That is exactly what has happened with some of the rarest 1965 cents. Collectors from around the world, including those from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, have shown intense interest in American coinage, especially those pieces tied to historical moments. The removal of mint marks in 1965 makes this coin a snapshot of an unusual era in U.S. history, and that adds another layer of fascination for international buyers. As you listen to this story, think about how incredible it is that something as small as a penny can hold such significance. Each coin in your pocket has traveled through countless hands, each one carrying its own history, its own secrets. The 1965 cent is just one example, but it serves as a reminder that money is more than a tool for buying and selling. It is a tangible link to the past, a piece of art, and in rare cases, a treasure that can change someone's life forever. The tale of the penny worth $183 million continues to inspire treasure hunters, collectors, and dreamers alike. Somewhere out there, hidden in a jar, a drawer, or a collection, another extraordinary specimen might be waiting to be discovered. And who knows? Perhaps the next legendary penny could be in your possession without you even realizing it. When we move deeper into the story of the 1965 1-cent coin, the next essential chapter belongs to grading and condition. It is impossible to talk about value without understanding how the grading system works, because that alone can be the difference between a penny worth a few cents and the very same coin being appraised at hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The grading scale, as developed by the Sheldon system, ranges from poor 1 all the way up to mint state 70, with mint state meaning the coin shows no wear and retains its original luster. Imagine the difference between a coin that has been carried in someone's pocket for years, rubbed against keys and other coins, covered in scratches and dullness, and another coin that has been locked away since the day it left the mint, untouched by human hands, glowing with copper-red brilliance as if it were minted yesterday. That difference is not just cosmetic, it is financial destiny. Collectors prize the highest grades because they are so rare. The truth is that out of the millions of 1965 cents that were struck, almost all of them entered circulation, and almost all of them show signs of wear. Only a fraction were preserved in mint sets or discovered accidentally in rolls that remained unopened for decades. That is why coins graded at MS 67 or higher are worth staggering amounts, and when even the possibility of a coin being in MS 69 condition arises, collectors rush in like sharks circling a drop of blood in the water. Error coins form another pillar of the 1965 penny legend. To the casual observer, an error coin looks like a mistake, something the mint might have discarded, but to collectors these errors are works of art, frozen accidents that make each specimen unique. Among the most coveted are the double die obverse and reverse errors, where the coin was struck twice with slight misalignment, creating a ghost-like doubling of letters and numbers. When a date like 1965 appears doubled under magnification, the value skyrockets. Another spectacular error involves off-center strikes. Picture the design of Lincoln's face shifted awkwardly to the side, leaving a blank crescent of copper where the die never struck. These off-center pieces can range from small misalignments worth a few $100s to dramatic 50% off-center strikes that command thousands. Even more dramatic are coins struck on the wrong planchets, where a penny was accidentally minted on a blank intended for a dime or a foreign coin. These one-of-a-kind accidents are like lightning captured in metal, and collectors chase them with relentless passion. But how do these values reach into the realm of millions, let alone the whispered tale of one selling for $183 million? The answer is not just in the physical coin itself, but in the psychology of ownership. In the world of collecting, there is a phenomenon known as the trophy effect. Just as art collectors compete for the rarest masterpieces and car enthusiasts bid astronomical amounts for unique vehicles, coin collectors seek the ultimate prize. It is not simply about money, it is about prestige, legacy, and power. To own the most expensive penny is to own a slice of history, to be recognized within the numismatic community as the custodian of something no one else possesses. That feeling of exclusivity drives the price far beyond logical calculations. Even billionaires, who could easily buy yachts, islands, or sports teams, are willing to bid insane amounts on a single coin because it represents immortality within the collecting world. Stories from famous auctions illustrate this perfectly. In hushed halls, under the glare of spotlights, collectors from around the globe sit poised, holding paddles, waiting for the auctioneer's voice to announce the lot number. The room grows tense as the bidding starts modestly, then accelerates with each call. One hand rises, then another, and before long the numbers spiral into territory most people cannot even imagine. A coin that once clinked in someone's pocket is now commanding the attention of millionaires and billionaires, who battle not with swords but with bids. Gasps fill the air when the hammer finally falls, sealing the fate of another legendary coin, adding yet another chapter to the saga of the 1965 cent beyond auctions. Myths and legends spread like wildfire in the world of coins. The internet has amplified these tales to an unprecedented degree. Articles, videos, and forum posts claim extraordinary values for seemingly ordinary pennies, sparking treasure hunts across the world. People empty their piggy banks, scour their jars of change, and search through old collections passed down by grandparents, hoping to stumble upon a fortune. The 1965 penny has become the star of countless such stories. Some claim that every 1965 cent is worth millions, which is not true, but the allure of the myth keeps people searching. The truth is more subtle. Most 1965 pennies are common, but a few, in pristine condition or with remarkable errors, can reach values beyond imagination. Still, the myth serves a purpose. It keeps interest alive, it keeps people dreaming, and it fuels the market in a way no ordinary advertisement ever could. The history of 1965 adds further mystique. Remember, this was a year of change and upheaval in U.S. coinage. The removal of mint marks meant that every coin looked the same, erasing the distinction between Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. To the average person, this meant nothing, but to collectors, it represented the end of an era. Mint marks had been used since the early days of American coinage, telling the story of where a coin was born, linking it to the identity of a specific mint. By stripping the coins of their marks, the government created a sense of mystery. Which mint produced a given 1965 penny? Without the mark, you cannot know for certain. This ambiguity adds fuel to the legend. It is as if each coin carries a secret, a hidden origin that only deep research might uncover. Some believe that within this chaos, certain special strikes slip through the cracks, coins that should not exist, coins that defy explanation. These are the coins that keep collectors awake at night. Imagine for a moment the journey of a 1965 penny. Freshly minted, it leaves the press gleaming red, its surface reflecting light like polished gold. It drops into a bin with thousands of others, indistinguishable, anonymous. From there it is bagged, boxed, and shipped to banks. A teller counts it, rolls it, and hands it out to customers. A child might receive it as change for candy. A worker might drop it into a vending machine. It rattles around in pockets, purses, and cash registers. Years pass, decades slip by, and most of those pennies wear down, tarnish, and eventually vanish into obscurity. But one, perhaps by accident, is set aside. Maybe a collector notices its shine. Maybe someone keeps it in a jar. That coin, preserved against the odds, survives in perfect condition while its brothers perish. 50, 60 years later, that one coin emerges from the shadows and enters the stage of an auction, where it transforms from pocket change into a legend. That is the alchemy of numismatics. That is how ordinary copper turns into gold. There is also the role of certification in this transformation. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC serve as arbiters of truth, examining each coin under magnification, assigning grades, and sealing them in protective holders known as slabs. A coin that might sell for $10 raw could sell for $10,000 once graded, because certification provides trust. Buyers know they are getting exactly what is described. No fakes, no hidden damage. For the 1965 penny, this certification is crucial. The highest grade coins are often discovered in sealed mint sets, but even then, only a handful achieve the top grades. When one does, it is immediately recognized by the grading companies, recorded in population reports, and pursued by collectors like a lion chasing prey. Each coin becomes not just an object, but a documented piece of history, its condition frozen in time, its identity immortalized. Collectors themselves play an important role in shaping these legends. Some dedicate their lives to assembling complete sets of Lincoln cents, from 1909 all the way to the present. Others specialize in varieties and errors, scouring through rolls with magnifying glasses in search of doubled dies and repunchment marks. The 1965 penny stands at the crossroads of both passions, offering both a necessary piece for complete date sets and tantalizing varieties for error hunters. Online communities buzz with stories of discoveries, photos of unusual coins, debates over authenticity. A single blurry image of a possible error can spark weeks of heated discussion. Out of this environment, myths like the $183 million penny take root and flourish. It is a perfect storm of history, rarity, passion, and imagination. In truth, even without the myths, the 1965 penny is worth studying for what it represents historically. It tells the story of a nation grappling with inflation, with shortages, with changes in the very metal content of its coinage. In the same decade, silver was being removed from dimes and quarters, a monumental shift in American money. The penny remained copper for a while longer, but the seeds of change were already planted. By 1982, the composition of the penny would shift to copper-plated zinc, a cheaper material reflecting the rising cost of copper. Looking back, the 1965 cent stands as a relic of a time when pennies still carried real weight, when they were struck in bronze that felt solid in the hand. To hold one today is to hold a fragment of that history, to feel the difference between then and now. The legend of the 1965 1-cent coin does not stop at American borders. In fact, the fascination with this small piece of copper has spilled over into the global marketplace, where collectors from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East all compete for a chance to own a slice of the story. To understand why, you need to look at the psychology of wealth and the international coin market. Wealthy individuals in countries like China, India, Saudi Arabia, and Switzerland often seek tangible assets that go beyond gold and real estate. Rare coins, especially American coins with their strong cultural resonance and worldwide recognition, have become an alternative form of treasure. Just as the world competes for luxury watches, classic cars, or rare paintings, so too does it compete for coins that carry legendary status. The 1965 penny, thanks to rumors of astronomical sales and whispers of a specimen fetching $183 million, has entered the collective imagination of these buyers. It has become more than a coin. It has become a symbol of exclusivity, of possessing something that cannot be replicated, something that even billionaires cannot simply buy it because only one or two examples might exist in the highest condition. This global demand has reshaped the way the market operates. Auctions in the United States are no longer attended only by local collectors. International bidders now participate through online platforms, phone calls, and private representatives, driving up prices to unprecedented levels. When a high-grade 1965 cent appears for sale, it is not unusual for collectors from opposite sides of the world to lock horns in bidding wars that escalate faster than anyone expects. Each bidder is fueled not just by desire, but by competition, by the need to outdo rivals and claim the trophy. Auctioneers know this and capitalize on it, weaving stories around each lot, emphasizing rarity, highlighting population reports, and invoking the myths that swirl around the coin. The story of the penny worth millions is told and retold, building drama, until the crowd is convinced they are witnessing history in the making. The final hammer price often exceeds any logical estimate because at that moment, logic is not what drives the market, emotion and prestige do. Behind these scenes stand the private collectors, enigmatic figures whose names are sometimes revealed and sometimes kept secret. Some are lifelong numismatists who have studied coins since childhood, driven purely by passion. Others are investors, billionaires who view rare coins as assets to diversify their portfolios. There are even celebrities who dabble in coin collecting, using their fame to draw attention to the hobby. The 1965 penny has appeared in whispers about collections belonging to tech moguls, oil magnates, and royal families. Whether these stories are true or not is almost beside the point. The myth of ownership adds yet another layer of mystique. If someone hears that a sheik in the Middle East or a Silicon Valley billionaire has quietly purchased a 1965 cent for tens of millions, the coin's reputation grows. People begin to ask why it was worth so much, what secret quality it possessed, and whether another like it might still be out there waiting to be discovered. This question, whether another exists, keeps collectors awake at night. The human mind is drawn to treasure hunts, to the possibility that something of unimaginable value might be hiding in plain sight. The story of the 1965 penny worth millions fuels this dream for thousands of people across the world. In countless households, jars of old coins are being emptied, pennies are being inspected under magnifying glasses, and every 1965 cent is scrutinized with hope. Most discoveries turn out to be ordinary, worth only face value or a few cents more, but every so often, a coin emerges that does defy expectations. A double die here, a high-grade mint state there. Each new discovery rekindles the fire, proving that treasures do exist, that legends are rooted in reality. That is the magic of numismatics, the blend of history, art, chance, and dream chasing. The future of the 1965 penny is even more fascinating. Right now, we live in a time where tangible collectibles are more desirable than ever. Economic uncertainty pushes people to seek assets outside of traditional markets. Art, watches, cars, and rare coins all benefit from this trend. The penny, humble as it seems, has the advantage of being iconic. Everyone knows what a penny looks like. Unlike obscure historical coins that require specialized knowledge to appreciate, the Lincoln cent is universal. A billionaire showing off a rare penny to his peers does not need to explain what it is. Everyone recognizes Lincoln's profile. Everyone understands its place in American history. That instant recognition is part of what makes the 1965 penny so powerful in the market. It is simple yet legendary, common yet unique, ordinary yet priceless. Looking ahead, experts predict that as the population of top-grade examples becomes more widely known, their values will only increase. Every year, grading companies update their census reports, showing how many coins exist at each grade level. For the 1965 cent, the numbers at the highest grades remain extremely low, sometimes in the single digits. Each time a coin achieves a new record grade, headlines spread through the collecting world, sparking renewed interest. As time passes, the chances of finding fresh, untouched 1965 pennies diminish. Most have already been discovered, graded, and cataloged. That means scarcity only intensifies, and with scarcity comes rising prices. It is entirely plausible that within the next decade, another 1965 penny could break auction records, cementing its place as one of the most valuable coins of all time. But beyond money, the coin story touches something deeper. It speaks to the idea that value is not inherent in the metal but created by human perception, by our collective agreement that this small disk of copper carries meaning. A penny by itself is almost worthless in today's economy. You cannot buy candy with it anymore. Vending machines reject it, and some people toss them aside as annoyances. Yet within the numismatic world, that same penny can be priceless. This paradox fascinates collectors and philosophers alike. How can one object be both worthless and invaluable at the same time? The answer lies in rarity, in history, in the stories we tell. The 1965 penny embodies that contradiction perfectly, making it a cultural artifact as much as a financial one. Consider also the role of media in shaping this legend. YouTube videos, online articles, and social media posts constantly hype the penny's supposed values, sometimes exaggerating claims, but always keeping the story alive. Every new generation of collectors stumbles across these tales, sparking curiosity and inspiring searches. Even children, hearing that a penny might be worth millions, begin checking their change. This ensures that the story never dies, that it continues to ripple through time. A coin becomes immortal when its story refuses to fade, and the 1965 penny has achieved exactly that. Decades from now, people will still be talking about it, still dreaming of finding one, still telling the tale of the penny worth more than entire skyscrapers. It is worth imagining what would happen if another legendary specimen suddenly appeared, one that could be authenticated and graded as flawless. The coin market would explode with excitement. News outlets would pick up the story. Headlines would proclaim the discovery of a penny worth hundreds of millions, and the world would once again be reminded of the hidden treasures lurking in plain sight. That one coin would become a global sensation, bringing attention not only to the 1965 penny, but to the entire field of numismatics. Museums might bid for it, billionaires would fight for it, and the story would dominate financial and cultural conversations for weeks. That is the power of a small piece of copper when myth and reality intertwine. Even today, stories circulate about coins still hidden in safety deposit boxes, tucked away by collectors decades ago and forgotten by their descendants. Somewhere, perhaps in an attic or a bank vault, a pristine 1965 penny might be waiting, its copper surface still blazing with original red luster. When it finally emerges, the world will be ready to celebrate it. The discovery will remind us all that history is not just in textbooks, but in the objects we hold, the coins we spend, and the treasures we overlook. The humble penny, born in an age of shortages and change, has grown into one of the most romantic legends in American coinage. And as long as people continue to dream, the legend will only grow larger. When you look closely at the culture of coin collecting, you begin to realize that coins are not only objects of metal but also symbols of identity, status, and rivalry. The 1965 penny, with its story of extreme value and rarity, has become a battlefield where collectors compete not only for ownership but for prestige. In high-end collecting circles, possession of a legendary coin is a statement of power, a way of signaling to peers that one has not only wealth but knowledge, patience, and the ability to secure something others cannot. This is why rare coins often command values far beyond their intrinsic worth in copper or bronze. They become like jewels in a crown, tokens of achievement that define their owner's reputation within the community. A billionaire might own yachts, planes, or companies, but to possess the rarest penny, a coin every American recognizes yet few will ever see in perfect form, is to claim a unique and almost poetic victory. Rivalries play a large part in driving these values. Throughout history, coin collectors have engaged in silent battles, each trying to outdo the other in building the most complete, the most flawless, or the most unique collection. Stories circulate of wealthy individuals bidding against each other for decades, each determined not to let the other have the prize. The 1965 cent, with its mythic reputation, naturally becomes a weapon in these rivalries. Imagine two collectors, each with fortunes vast enough to buy almost anything in the world. When both desire the same coin, money ceases to be the limit. Pride takes over, and the price escalates far beyond logic. The coin becomes the spark for an unspoken duel, fought not with swords, but with bids, with each increase a declaration of willpower and dominance. This is why values like $183 million become believable. It is not that the penny is physically worth that much, it is that human pride, ego, and desire can inflate its worth into the realm of the unimaginable. This leads to a fascinating debate within the world of numismatics. Should coins of such significance belong to private collectors, hidden away in vaults, or should they be housed in museums where the public can see them? Museums argue that coins are pieces of cultural history, artifacts that should be preserved and displayed for the education and inspiration of all. A penny that tells the story of 1965, with all its historical context, belongs not just to one person, but to the nation and the world. Private collectors, on the other hand, argue that without their passion and investment, many of these coins would not survive at all. They see themselves as custodians, protectors who preserve treasures that governments and institutions often neglect. The 1965 penny sits at the heart of this debate. Imagine the excitement if one of the finest known specimens were placed in the Smithsonian, available for millions of visitors to admire. Now imagine the alternative: the same coin locked in a billionaire's vault, admired only by a select few. Both scenarios have their truths, and both fuel the ongoing tension between private passion and public heritage. Beyond the debate of ownership lies a deeper question: why do humans value these objects so intensely in the first place? After all, a penny is just a disc of copper, a common object produced by the billions. Yet when you attach rarity, history, and myth, it transforms into a treasure worth fighting for. This speaks to something fundamental in human nature: the desire to create meaning, to elevate the ordinary into the extraordinary. For thousands of years, humans have collected shells, stones, gems, and artifacts, imbuing them with significance beyond their physical properties. The 1965 penny continues this ancient tradition. It is not valuable because of what it is, but because of what it represents: a moment in history, a story of survival, a chance at immortality. To own it is to hold in your hand not only a piece of metal, but a piece of human imagination itself. The chase for rare coins also reflects the human fascination with chance and luck. Everyone dreams of stumbling upon hidden treasure, of finding something priceless in the most ordinary place. The story of the 1965 penny worth millions fuels this dream in a very direct way. People hear that a penny in their pocket might be worth a fortune, and suddenly every coin becomes a potential lottery ticket. This democratizes the dream, making it accessible not only to the wealthy but to ordinary people as well. You do not need to be a billionaire to check your change jar. You do not need special connections to search rolls of pennies from the bank. Anyone, anywhere, could in theory discover a treasure. This hope spreads across generations, inspiring children, inspiring families, and keeping the culture of coin collecting alive. It is also important to consider the role of storytelling in this phenomenon. Coins are more than objects. They are narratives captured in metal. The 1965 penny tells the story of a turbulent time in American history, a period of change in coinage, a moment when tradition was broken and something new began. Every detail of its design adds to this narrative. Lincoln's face on the obverse connects the coin to the values of freedom and unity. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse ties it to the nation's capital, to history and continuity. The missing mint mark adds mystery and intrigue, a symbol of the unusual decisions made during the coin shortage. Each scratch, each shine, each error adds a new chapter to the story. When collectors bid for a coin, they are not just buying metal, they are buying that story, that connection to a time and place that can never be repeated. Philosophers of value might say that coins, like the 1965 penny, remind us of the fluid nature of worth itself. What we call value is not fixed but created by consensus, by belief, by culture. Copper is cheap, but belief makes it priceless. The same is true of many things in life: art, diamonds, land, even digital assets. The penny becomes a mirror reflecting our own human tendencies to elevate, to mythologize, to turn stories into wealth. This is why it is so powerful as a cultural symbol. It forces us to confront the question, what do we value, and why? The story also highlights the intersection of past and future. In 1965, when that penny rolled off the press, no one could have imagined it would one day inspire tales of fortunes. Yet here we are, decades later, treating it like a legendary treasure. What ordinary objects of today might become tomorrow's myths? Perhaps the lesson of the penny is that history chooses its treasures unpredictably, turning the mundane into the magical when we least expect it. And perhaps that is why people continue to dream, continue to search, and continue to tell the story of the 1965 penny worth more than entire empires. The story of the 1965 penny would not be complete without looking at the auctions that had shaped its reputation. Auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Sotheby's have become theaters where ordinary coins are transformed into objects of spectacle. Every time a rare 1965 cent has crossed the block, whether it be an unusually high-grade mint state example or a dramatic era coin, the prices realized have far exceeded expectations. Collectors still talk about the case of a bright, blazing red 1965 cent graded MS-67 that stunned the audience when bidding leapt from the hundreds into the tens of thousands. What was most surprising was not just the hammer price, but the passion in the room. Bidders knew this was not simply copper but history. Stories spread quickly after the sale, fueling rumors that even higher grades might exist somewhere, locked away in rolls that had never been searched. That whisper, that possibility, is what keeps the market alive. Some of the most exciting tales come not from auction houses, but from ordinary people who stumble across treasures by accident. There was once a story of a man in the Midwest who had inherited jars of pennies from his grandfather. For decades they had sat untouched in the attic, dismissed as loose change. One day, on a whim, he poured them out and began looking through them. Hours later, he held in his hand a 1965 penny so flawless it looked as if it had been minted yesterday. When he sent it to a grading service, it came back as one of the highest known grades, instantly turning his inheritance into a six-figure treasure. Imagine the shock of realizing that something lying in your attic, something you almost threw away, was actually worth more than a luxury car. These stories circulate in the collecting world like campfire legends, fueling the dream that any one of us could be next. Children have discovered coins too. One tale involves a young boy who, while helping his parents roll pennies for the bank, noticed that one coin looked different. His sharp eyes caught a double date, a classic double die error on a 1965 cent. That small discovery, confirmed by experts, brought in enough money to help fund his college tuition. Stories like these are powerful because they make the dream accessible. They prove that treasure hunting is not only for the wealthy, not only for experts, but for anyone willing to look closely at the change in their hand. The error coins of 1965 form a chapter all their own. Among the most sought after are the double die obverse examples, where the numbers of the date and the letters of the motto appear doubled under magnification. These are not common, but when found they command staggering premiums. Off-center strikes are another prized category. Some pennies show only half of Lincoln's face, the rest swallowed by a blank crescent of copper. The more dramatic the error, the more valuable the coin. A perfectly centered strike is expected, but a mistake that survived quality control, slipped into circulation, and endured decades to resurface today is a marvel. There are also broad strike errors, where the coin was struck without a collar and spread wider than normal, creating a strange flattened disc. Even rarer are transitional errors, coins struck on the wrong planchet. Collectors whisper about 1965 cents that were accidentally struck on dime planchets, making them smaller and silver in appearance. Such coins are freaks of nature, each one unique, each one capable of fetching enormous sums when authenticated. Collectors often speak about the Holy Grail specimen, the one coin that would change everything. For the 1965 penny, the Holy Grail is imagined as a flawless, untouched, blazing red coin graded MS-70 by a professional service. As of today, number 1965 cent has achieved that grade. The grading companies have never certified a perfect example. But the possibility remains, however slim, that such a coin might exist, tucked away in a sealed mint set, never exposed to air, never handled by human hands. If it were ever discovered, the coin collecting world would erupt. Such a coin would not simply be valuable, It would be priceless, an icon, a piece of living legend. Collectors estimate that it could fetch not just millions, but potentially tens or hundreds of millions, because it would be truly unique. It would be the definition of rarity. One of one. The Holy Grail coin exists as much in imagination as in reality. Collectors dream about it, dealers speculate about it, and writers fuel its legend. This dream is important because it keeps people engaged, searching, and believing. Every time someone opens a roll of pennies, every time a family empties a change jar, they wonder, could the Holy Grail be hiding here? That question is what drives the endless search, the constant energy that surrounds the 1965 cent. Without that dream, coins would simply be metal. With it, they become stories, and stories are what humans truly treasure. Another fascinating element of the 1965 penny legend is how quickly misinformation can spread. On social media, exaggerated claims are everywhere. Some videos tell viewers that every 1965 penny is worth millions, leading people to flood coin shops and grading services with ordinary cents. While this frustrates professionals, it also benefits the hobby in an indirect way. The hype draws in new participants, new eyes, new energy. Even if 9 out of 10 people discover their pennies are only worth face value, the 10th person might find something extraordinary. And those 9 people still walk away with a greater appreciation of history, a curiosity about numismatics, and maybe even the beginning of a lifelong hobby. The myth sustains the market, even when it distorts reality. It is important to emphasize, though, that genuine rarities do exist. When people laugh at the idea of a penny worth $183 million, they miss the bigger picture. That number might be exaggerated or based on rumor, but it reflects a real truth, that rare coins can command values beyond imagination when the right specimen meets the right buyer. The 1965 penny, with its unusual historical context, its missing mint marks, and its potential for unique errors, has all the ingredients necessary to inspire such extreme valuations. Even if most examples remain ordinary, the few extraordinary ones justify the legend. And legends, once born, are very difficult to kill. Imagine again the auction room. The lights are bright, the crowd is hushed. The auctioneer lifts a small coin, no larger than the tip of a thumb, and begins the bidding. Voices call out numbers, each one higher than the last, until the figures no longer seem real. The tension builds, the room vibrates with excitement, and when the hammer falls, history has been made. A penny once worth 1 cent is now worth millions. Cameras flash, headlines are written, and the legend of the 1965 penny grows stronger. The cycle repeats with each sale, each discovery, each rumor, ensuring that this coin will never fade into obscurity. The Holy Grail of 1965 has not yet been found, but that is what makes the search so powerful. If it were already discovered, the story would be over. Instead, it remains alive, inviting every new generation to participate. Somewhere out there, in a drawer, a box, or a forgotten collection, a coin might be waiting. And until it appears, the dream will never die. That dream is what makes the 1965 penny more than metal. It makes it myth, magic, and mystery, all captured in a circle of copper that weighs just over 3 grams. The influence of the 1965 penny goes beyond collectors' cabinets and auction houses. It has seeped into culture in ways that are subtle but powerful. For many people, a penny is a symbol of luck. The old saying, "Find a penny, pick it up, and all day long you'll have good luck," transforms this humble coin into a charm, a token of fortune. When that penny happens to be from 1965, the year that numismatists whisper about, the charm feels magnified. People hold on to such coins not merely as change but as talismans, believing they carry a hidden power. It is not just superstition, it is the idea that something so ordinary could secretly be extraordinary, that fortune can hide in plain sight, Popular culture loves stories like this. Magazines and newspapers run articles with headlines like, "Check your change jar. Your old pennies could be worth millions." Television shows feature segments where experts explain how a forgotten coin turned into a life-changing discovery. Social media amplifies the phenomenon, with short videos gaining millions of views simply by claiming that a 1965 penny could be worth $183 million. Even if most viewers never see such wealth, they enjoy the thrill of the possibility. It turns pocket change into a treasure hunt. In this way, the coin becomes more than a collector's item. It becomes a story everyone participates in, even without realizing it. Writers and historians also find meaning in the 1965 penny. For them, the coin represents a turning point in American history. The mid-1960s were turbulent years. Civil rights movements, cultural revolutions, political upheavals, and economic transitions. To historians, the small copper coin minted in those years reflects the broader themes of change and continuity. The absence of mint marks that year is interpreted as a metaphor for unity. All coins look the same, no matter where they were minted, as if the nation itself was striving to present a unified front during uncertain times. The reliance on copper, a traditional material, amidst global silver shortages, symbolizes resilience and adaptation. To study the 1965 penny is to study America in a single object, a moment frozen in metal. Numismatists often debate whether the value of such coins lies in their rarity or in their symbolism. Some argue that without the historical context, the coin would be meaningless, just another copper disc. Others say that without the rarity, the story would never have caught fire. The truth is probably both. The 1965 penny has become a myth precisely because it stands at the intersection of history, scarcity, and mystery. The story could not survive without all three. Rarity alone does not create legends. History alone does not create value. Mystery alone does not command millions. But combined, they create something irresistible. Collectors also compare the 1965 penny to other legendary coins. The 1943 copper penny, accidentally struck when most pennies were steel during World War II, is perhaps its closest rival in fame. Those coins have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes more. The 1913 Liberty Head nickel, with only 5 known examples, has sold for millions. And yet, the 1965 penny remains unique because of its cultural footprint. It is not merely rare. It is a coin that millions of people still encounter in circulation. That accessibility gives it power. Anyone, at any time, could stumble upon one in a roll of coins or a drawer of change. That democratic accessibility, combined with the tantalizing possibility of unimaginable wealth, makes the 1965 penny the people's legend. Even film and literature occasionally echo the spirit of the 1965 penny. Stories about hidden treasures, overlooked objects, or the magic of small things resonate because they mirror the real-world phenomenon of coin collecting. A penny that looks worthless, but turns out to be priceless is the perfect metaphor for hidden potential. It reflects the idea that greatness can hide in simplicity, that miracles can exist in the mundane. In a world obsessed with luxury and extravagance, the humble penny reminds us that value is not always obvious. It is a lesson in humility, patience, and careful observation. For many collectors, the 1965 penny is not only about money but about connection. Holding one in your hand is like holding a piece of the past, a direct link to another time. Perhaps it was carried by a soldier returning from Vietnam, or by a protester marching for civil rights, or by a young child buying candy at a corner store. The coin has passed through countless hands, witnessed countless lives. When you hold it today, you are not only holding copper, you are holding stories. That realization gives the coin a spiritual dimension, elevating it from currency to relic. The market, of course, thrives on these layers of meaning. Dealers know that they are not just selling metal, they are selling dreams, history, and identity. When a collector pays thousands or even millions for a 1965 penny, they are not only buying rarity, they are buying a story to tell, a legacy to own, and a symbol to treasure. This is why the coin's value can reach extraordinary heights. Money follows meaning, and few objects carry as much layered meaning as this humble cent. The astronomical figure of $183 million often sparks debate. Skeptics dismiss it as hype, as internet fantasy. Believers argue that with the right coin, in the right grade, with the right story, anything is possible. After all, art is sold for hundreds of millions, even though its material cost is far less than copper. Diamonds, paintings, even digital NFTs have commanded such prices. Why not a coin, especially one imbued with history, rarity, and legend? The 1965 penny at such a price may seem outrageous, but it reflects the human desire to find value where others see none. In that sense, the number itself becomes part of the myth. It does not matter whether it is fully real. What matters is that people believe it could be. Every great treasure carries with it a myth that magnifies its value. The 1965 pennies myth is still unfolding. Each new auction, each new discovery, each new viral story adds another layer. The narrative grows richer, the legend stronger. And as long as people continue to believe in the possibility of hidden wealth, the penny will continue to inspire. Perhaps somewhere, in a quiet drawer or an old jar, the next chapter of this story is waiting to be found. Until then, the dream remains alive, shimmering in copper, whispering to all who hold it that fortune sometimes hides in the smallest of places. The psychology behind coin collecting has always fascinated historians and economists alike. At first glance, one might assume that collectors are motivated purely by money, by the desire to profit from rare pieces that appreciate in value. Yet when you speak to serious numismatists, you discover a deeper truth. For many of them, the thrill comes from the chase, from the possibility of uncovering something rare in an unexpected place. They describe coin collecting not as an investment, but as a form of treasure hunting. The 1965 penny embodies this better than almost any other coin. It exists in vast numbers, yet hidden among the ordinary pieces could be an extraordinary specimen, one of those rare misstrikes or flawless examples worth life-changing sums. That tension, between the common and the rare, between the worthless and the priceless, keeps collectors hooked. It is not just the coin they seek, but the feeling of discovery, the rush of realizing that history and fortune can collide in the palm of their hand. When economists look at the 1965 penny's market behavior, they see patterns similar to those found in precious metals like gold and silver. Throughout history, gold has been valued not because of its intrinsic usefulness, but because of its scarcity, its beauty, and the stories cultures attached to it. Similarly, silver coins were treasured for centuries as currency not simply due to their metal content, but because of the trust societies placed in them. The 1965 penny, while made of copper rather than precious metals, operates in the same psychological framework. Its worth is not derived from the copper it contains, but from the belief that certain versions of it, rare strikes, untouched specimens, are extraordinary. In this sense, the penny becomes a symbolic metal, like gold. Its actual utility is minimal. Its symbolic weight is immense. Comparing the coin to gold is particularly fitting when you consider its price trajectory. At times, gold rises sharply in value due to economic uncertainty, only to stabilize later. Similarly, the 1965 penny experiences surges of attention, with media coverage or auction results catapulting its reputation sky high. Stories of a coin allegedly selling for $183 million act like sparks, reigniting global curiosity. Even if the figure is debated, the buzz itself creates momentum, pulling more people into the world of numismatics. Each new person who starts checking their change jars adds to the collective fascination, expanding the coin's mythos. In that sense, the 1965 penny is more than a piece of currency. It is a cultural commodity, one whose market value thrives on attention, belief, and imagination. To imagine the future of the 1965 penny is to imagine the future of collecting itself. Technology is changing the way people interact with rare objects. Digital grading services now allow coins to be authenticated with incredible precision, reducing the uncertainty that once surrounded condition and rarity. Blockchain technology even offers the possibility of creating digital certificates that permanently record a coin's provenance, ensuring that fakes and forgeries become easier to detect. In such a future, a verified 1965 penny in pristine condition could become even more valuable, because its authenticity would be beyond doubt. Collectors in Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, markets that are rapidly growing in numismatic interest, could compete for ownership, driving prices higher. What was once an American coin might become a global treasure, sought after not just by U.S. collectors, but by the wealthy elite around the world who crave symbols of history and rarity. The coin's symbolic role may also evolve in unexpected ways. Just as the 1943 copper penny became a symbol of wartime ingenuity and accident, the 1965 penny could increasingly be seen as a symbol of the turbulent 1960s. Museums may one day feature the coin in exhibits about the era, not simply as currency but as an artifact of culture. Imagine a display case that shows a 1965 penny alongside photographs of civil rights marches, Vietnam War protests, and the music festivals that defined a generation. The penny, in such a context, becomes more than a collectible. It becomes a storyteller, a small object that represents the contradictions of a decade, both ordinary and extraordinary. Collectors often wonder how long the myth can last. Will the fascination fade, or will it grow with each generation? Evidence suggests that myths only strengthen with time. Consider ancient coins from Rome or Greece. Once mere currency, they are now priceless artifacts, valued for their connection to lost civilizations. The 1965 penny could follow a similar trajectory. Centuries from now, when our current world is studied by future historians, the penny may be one of the most recognizable artifacts of 20th century America. Its story will not only be about its monetary worth, but about the society that created it, hoarded it, and dreamed about it. There is also a romantic aspect to this story that continues to capture imaginations. The idea that a penny, something so overlooked that people toss it aside, could secretly be worth millions, speaks to a universal human hope, the hope that hidden riches exist within our everyday lives. It is the same hope that fuels fairy tales, treasure hunts, and even modern lotteries. People want to believe that luck, fate, or destiny could suddenly transform their lives. The 1965 penny embodies that belief perfectly. It whispers to everyone who holds it, "Perhaps I am the one. Perhaps I am the fortune you have been waiting for." This whisper keeps people searching, collecting, and believing. Market analysts sometimes caution that hype around rare coins can create bubbles, where prices soar on excitement rather than intrinsic value. Yet in the case of the 1965 penny, the intrinsic value lies precisely in the hype itself. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. The more people believe in the coin's myth, the more valuable it becomes. Unlike commodities like oil or wheat, whose prices depend on supply and demand for physical use, collectible markets depend almost entirely on story, scarcity, and desire. The penny has all three in abundance. Therefore, even if the $183 million figure seems exaggerated, the myth has already cemented its place. The penny does not need to sell for that amount in reality. It only needs to inspire belief that it could. In the end, the 1965 penny teaches a lesson about human value systems. We do not always treasure things for their utility. Often, we treasure them for their symbolism, for the stories we attach to them, and for the emotions they stir. A copper disc becomes priceless not because of what it is, but because of what it represents: hope, history, luck, and legend. That is why, decades from now, long after today's collectors are gone, people may still be talking about the 1965 penny. It is not just a coin. It is a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest desires and beliefs. Imagine for a moment an ordinary day in the life of a man living in a small town. He is not wealthy. He is not famous. He is simply one of millions of people going through the motions of daily survival. Bills pile up, work is hard, dreams often feel distant. One morning, while cleaning out an old drawer, he comes across a small glass jar filled with coins he had tossed aside over the years. They are dusty, ordinary pennies that most people would not look at twice. Yet one coin catches his eye. Perhaps it is the way the light glints off its surface, or perhaps it is pure fate, but he picks it up and studies it. The date reads 1965. To most people, this would mean nothing, but he recalls reading somewhere about rare coins from that year. Curiosity sparks. He wipes it clean, examines it again, and feels a strange chill run down his spine. At first, he doubts himself. After all, how could something so small, so ordinary, be extraordinary? But the thought nags him. He searches online, cross-checks details, compares pictures. The more he looks, the more convinced he becomes that this penny is not ordinary. He notices minute details: the crispness of the strike, the unusual coloration, the way the lettering seems flawless. Heart racing, he decides to take it to a professional appraiser. Days later, sitting nervously in a numismatic office, he hands over the coin. The expert looks through a magnifying lens, then pauses. His expression changes. Silence hangs in the air. Finally, he leans back and whispers, "Do you have any idea what you are holding?" The man shakes his head. The expert replies, "This might be one of the rarest pennies ever discovered. Its potential value is beyond imagination." News spreads like wildfire. Within days, newspapers report the discovery of a pristine 1965 penny believed to be worth hundreds of millions. Television anchors call it the lucky penny. Social media explodes with hashtags, memes, and speculation. Strangers flood his home with offers, some genuine, others fraudulent. Reporters camp outside his house. Friends he has not spoken to in years suddenly reappear. Everyone wants to touch the coin, to see the miracle with their own eyes. What was once just a copper disc has transformed into a cultural phenomenon. The man, overwhelmed by attention, begins to feel the weight of history pressing down on him. He wonders whether he has found the coin, or whether the coin has found him. Auctions begin to buzz with anticipation. Collectors from around the world, billionaires, museums, royal families, tech moguls, announce their interest. Offers reach astronomical levels. One private buyer from the Middle East hints at a willingness to pay $183 million, shattering every record in coin history. Economists discuss the implications on live television. How can a penny, once dismissed as worthless, command more money than luxury mansions, private jets, even small companies? Yet the answer lies not in logic, but in the raw human hunger for rarity, for owning something no one else can. This penny, once overlooked, has become a symbol of fortune itself. Meanwhile, the man's life changes in unimaginable ways. He is suddenly a millionaire in waiting, courted by banks, advisors, and lawyers. His neighbors look at him differently, some with admiration, some with jealousy. The coin sits in a high-security vault, but its shadow follows him everywhere. At night, he dreams of it, sometimes with joy, sometimes with fear. For with great wealth comes great pressure. Will he sell it? Should he keep it? Could he even trust the world with something so valuable? He feels both blessed and burdened, chosen and cursed. The world watches as the auction date approaches. Cameras flash. The atmosphere crackles with energy. On the big day, the coin is placed on a velvet cushion under bright lights. It gleams with quiet dignity, as if aware of its own importance. Bids fly rapidly, climbing into tens of millions, then hundreds of millions. Finally, the hammer falls. $183 million. The room erupts. History has been made. The man who once lived paycheck to paycheck is now the owner of a fortune beyond his wildest dreams. Tears roll down his face as he realizes his life will never be the same. But the story does not end there. Economists write essays about the irrational beauty of human desire. Philosophers discuss how an object so small could hold such immense power. Children in schools hear the story and start checking their parents' jars of coins, hoping for their own miracle. The penny becomes more than a collectible. It becomes a legend, a symbol of luck, perseverance, and the belief that greatness can be hidden in the smallest places. Museums display replicas. Documentaries are filmed. People all over the world repeat the tale of the ordinary man whose life changed because of a single cent, yet the man himself, sitting quietly one evening after the whirlwind has settled, holds a simple thought in his heart. He remembers the day he first picked up that coin, when it was still just a piece of copper in a dusty jar. He realizes that the true miracle is not the money, not the fame, but the reminder that life can change in a single moment. He whispers to himself, "Sometimes the smallest things are the most powerful." And in that moment, the 1965 penny transcends wealth and becomes something eternal, a reminder of hope, of destiny, of the magic that lies hidden in the everyday world around us. When the gavel fell at the world's most prestigious auction house, and the 1965 penny was declared sold for $183 million, the ripples of that moment spread far beyond the walls of the auction room. Economists described it as a financial earthquake. The markets felt a subtle tremor, as if a message had been delivered to the world. Value is no longer confined to oil, gold, or real estate, but can be hidden in the smallest relics of history. News outlets ran headlines not only about the coin, but about what it represented, the power of rarity, the limitless potential of human desire, and the unpredictable currents of wealth. Governments paid attention. Central banks, who usually dealt with trillions in bonds and reserves, quietly took note that a single penny had commanded the kind of money that entire trade deals were worth. Financial analysts warned that this could spark a new era of speculative frenzy. If a coin once worth 1 cent could fetch nearly 200 million, then what about other relics, other forgotten artifacts buried in attics, basements, or coin jars around the world? Suddenly, ordinary citizens began digging through old drawers, pulling out shoeboxes filled with coins, hoping for miracles. Pawn shops overflowed with hopeful sellers. Coin dealers reported record traffic. Collectors, too, felt the heat. For decades, the world of rare coins had been a niche hobby for the wealthy and the passionate, but now it was front-page news. Billionaires who had previously focused on art or wine began quietly entering the coin market. A new wave of competitive obsession gripped the elite. One tycoon in Hong Kong was rumored to have paid $10 million for a relatively common coin simply because it was graded in near-perfect condition. A hedge fund in New York even launched an investment branch specializing entirely in numismatics, treating rare coins like blue-chip stocks. But with this surge came a darker side. The black market awakened. Whispers of rare 1965 pennies began circulating in shadowy forums online. Fraudsters minted counterfeits, so convincing that even experts struggled to distinguish them at first glance. Criminal networks realized the potential. Unlike gold bars or diamonds, a rare penny could pass unnoticed in a pocket yet be worth fortunes. Smuggling routes adapted. In dimly lit rooms in cities like Dubai, Zurich, and Moscow, under-the-table deals were conducted, coins changing hands for millions with no record, no taxes, no oversight. The 1965 penny had not only set records, it had opened a Pandora's box. Meanwhile, museums around the world began lobbying to acquire the legendary coin, believing it belonged not to an individual but to history itself. Institutions in Washington, London, and Tokyo offered to buy or display it for the world to see, but the private buyer, who paid $183 million, was determined to keep it hidden. That secrecy only fueled speculation. Where was the coin? Was it locked in a vault deep beneath a skyscraper? Displayed in a secret room lined with treasures? Or had it been spirited away to a private island, guarded like a crown jewel? The mystery became part of the legend, making the coin more than just a piece of copper. It was now myth. As years passed, the coin's influence reached the academic world. Universities introduced entire courses about monetary history, using the 1965 penny as a case study in human psychology and economics. Professors argued that it was a mirror reflecting society's deepest impulses: the hunger for uniqueness, the allure of ownership, the strange way people assign value not based on utility but on emotion and story. Documentaries dissected every angle. Was the penny valuable because of its rarity, or was it rare because humans decided to make it valuable? Did it reveal something about greed or about hope? Was it a warning about the fragility of money itself? Technology also played a role in amplifying its legend. Digital artists created NFTs of the penny, selling them for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Virtual museums displayed 3D scans that people could view through VR headsets. Teenagers who had never cared about coins suddenly began trading digital replicas online, turning the penny into a cross-generational phenomenon. The original coin was real copper, but in the digital world, it multiplied into millions of virtual versions, each one carrying a fragment of its aura. But through all the noise, the original 1965 penny remained supreme. Its story became timeless. From a humble minting in the turbulent mid-60s, to decades of obscurity, to rediscovery, to the most shocking sale in numismatic history. Futurists speculated what might happen next. Would it one day cross the $500 million mark? Could it become the first coin to sell for $1 billion? And if so, what would that say about humanity's priorities? That a small disc of metal, once bought for candy or gum, could outweigh skyscrapers and satellites in value, some saw danger. Economists warned that attaching such inflated worth to relics risked destabilizing rational markets. They feared bubbles, where people mortgaged homes or gambled life savings hoping to strike it rich with coins. But others saw opportunity. They argued that the penny reminded people to look closely at the world, to treasure history, to believe in miracles. It sparked curiosity in young generations, who might otherwise have ignored the past. It created hope that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon something extraordinary. And so, the 1965 penny continued to live not only in vaults and auctions, but in the imagination of millions. It was no longer just money, no longer just a collectible. It was a story, a lesson, a symbol. A symbol that wealth can come from the smallest, most overlooked corners of life. A symbol that time itself is a silent craftsman, turning ordinary objects into priceless treasures. And most of all, a symbol that the world is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered, perhaps sitting quietly in a jar in your own home, waiting for the right moment to change your destiny forever. Years after the historic auction that shocked the world, the story of the 1965 penny continued to echo across generations. What was once just a tiny disc of copper became a phenomenon that reshaped the way humanity looked at value. Economists, historians, collectors, and dreamers still spoke of it, but more importantly, it had grown into something far larger than anyone could have imagined. No longer was it just a coin. It had become a symbol of possibility, of destiny, of the fact that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest weight. As time moved forward, the coin's influence reached into the very structure of global finance. Thinkers proposed a radical idea. If a penny could hold the trust and attention of millions, why couldn't rare objects become the foundation of alternative monetary systems? Some futurists suggested that instead of measuring wealth only in paper currency or digital numbers, societies might one day back their economies with historical artifacts, cultural treasures, or even unique coins like the 1965 penny. It was, in a sense, a new kind of gold standard, one based not on scarcity of metal but on the scarcity of story. Governments dismissed the idea at first, yet private investors began experimenting. Digital currencies were launched, each backed by fractional ownership of rare items like the penny. These projects did not always succeed, but the very attempt showed how deeply the coin had seeped into human imagination. Suddenly, money was no longer just money. It was memory, history, identity. But while the debates raged on, the penny itself remained silent, resting in its hidden vault under layers of steel and glass. It had seen the world change around it, from the chaos of the 1960s to the glitter of the 21st century, and it remained what it always was, a coin. That was its paradox. On one hand, it was a priceless legend, valued at nearly $200 million. On the other hand, it was just copper, a piece of metal small enough to fit in the palm of a child. It reminded people that value is not in the object itself, but in the meaning we give it. In classrooms, teachers told their students the story of the penny not as a tale of wealth, but as a lesson in perspective. They would hold up a coin and say, "This could be worth 1 cent, or this could be worth $183 million. What matters is how people choose to see it. Remember that in life too, sometimes you may feel small, overlooked, ordinary, but in the right time, in the right light, your value can astonish the world." Children listened with wide eyes, inspired to dream bigger. The coin also became a reminder of humility for the wealthy. For billionaires and moguls, owning it was not just about money, but about legacy. Whoever possessed the coin held a piece of time itself, a frozen fragment of history that outlived empires, and would outlive them too. Some said the coin owned its owner, not the other way around, because whoever bought it inevitably became part of its story, not the other way around. And as the years passed, myths grew. Some whispered that the penny brought luck, that anyone who touched it would see their fortunes rise. Others claimed it cursed those who tried to exploit it. Legends mixed with facts until no one could tell where truth ended and fantasy began. That was the power of the coin. It became more than reality, it became legend. Then, in one of the most emotional turns of the tale, the owner of the penny, who had purchased it for $183 million, made an unexpected decision. After years of keeping it locked away, he announced that the coin would not be hidden anymore. It would not belong to one man, one family, or one vault. Instead, it would be donated to a museum, where every person, rich or poor, young or old, could come and see it with their own eyes. The world erupted with applause. It was as if the penny had finally completed its journey, from the hands of a mint worker in 1965, through decades of obscurity, to auctions and vaults, and finally to the people. On the day the penny was unveiled in its new glass case, millions watched the live broadcast. Children pressed their noses against the glass. Elders shed tears remembering how they had once spent such coins without thought, and collectors stood in silence, awed by its aura. It gleamed under the lights, not as a trophy of wealth, but as a beacon of history. Cameras zoomed in, and the world saw once more what it really was: a small, simple, ordinary penny that had become extraordinary because people believed it could. And in that moment, humanity understood something profound. The penny was never just about money. It was about hope. It was about belief. It was about the possibility that greatness hides in the smallest corners of life. It was a reminder that destiny does not announce itself loudly. It whispers, quietly, waiting for someone to listen. As the crowd gazed upon the coin, a hush fell. The narrator's voice, soft and steady, spoke the final words. A single penny, born in silence, forgotten for decades, rose to become a legend worth more than empires. Not because of its copper, not because of its weight, not because of its shine, but because of its story. And so it will remain, not just a coin, but a symbol. A symbol that no matter how small you feel, no matter how ordinary life seems, within you lies the power to astonish the world. Like the penny of 1965, your moment will come. And when it does, the world will never look at you the same way again. The lights dim. The coin glows faintly in its case. The screen fades to black. The story ends, but the legend lives forever.